Thank you for joining us on the Family First Life Health and Wealth podcast. Please like us on all of our platforms at Family First Life Health and Wealth. I hope this information helps you grow and learn. Please share this with everybody you know, all your friends, all your family. We're hiring all across the country. Be well. Welcome, everyone. Episode 21 of the Health and Wealth podcast. My name is Steve Giordano. I am here with my very special guest, the president of FFL Promise, Mrs. Stephanie McBride. How are we doing today, Stephanie?
Thank you so much, Steve. I'm doing wonderful. How are you?
I'm great. I got to handle all the special effects here.
Yeah, I love that.
Well, it's great having you down here in Florida. You are killing it. And just in our conversation a few minutes ago, just learning about what you're doing, I'm very intrigued, and I think we're going to get a lot of great information to give to others on our team and all across FFL. So let's start here. You started at FFL in July, and how long had you been in insurance?
So I've been in insurance for just about 2 years now.
Okay.
Yeah.
What did you do prior to insurance?
Prior to insurance, I've been in sales. Actually, I was an athlete for my whole life, so I really didn't start in the professional field until after college, because I played volleyball in college and then went and played professionally overseas for a year, came back, and then pretty much have never wanted to work a 9-to-5. I did a lot of multi-level marketing companies for like 7-8 years. I nannied. I did all the things trying to, I worked at Starbucks. Yeah, did all the things trying to, start my own business, really find that niche that I wanted to be in. Ended up, obviously needing to get a 9-to-5 in my 20s. So I did work in sales out in LA for a few years, moved out to Arizona, and I kind of fell into the insurance industry. So
I feel like we all kind of fall into it because it's like whoever was actually like, hey, I'm going to go be an insurance person, like in, when they're growing up, right?
Exactly.
So you've had a lot of drive in your life with sports and athletics, and then you had the desire for a business, but you just didn't have the platform, let's say.
Exactly. Yep.
And you went through different platforms to try and find the right one, and now you finally did.
Absolutely. Yeah. I found my home. That's
incredible. So in your upbringing, because on this podcast, I like to talk a lot about entrepreneurship, and some people came having that in their background. Other people, had to learn it later on in life. Were you kind of raised that way with kind of, parents that had that, background of entrepreneurship or business ownership?
Yeah, absolutely. So my dad's been in real estate for a long time. He did that in his early 20s and stuff like that. And I saw my parents, they always worked so hard for my family. They wanted our family to have more than what they had and, when they grew up. So, and actually my brother and I were actually the first generation in our family to graduate from college. So with our bachelor's degree. So yes. That they were really excited to kind of put us in that position. And my family did own, my parents owned their own business actually with a multi-level marketing company where they did really, really well for several years. And then they've been in sales, ever since then when we moved. And so I've just always seen them work really hard. But the funny thing is growing up, I think because they always just wanted what's best for me and my brother, is that I kind of just still grew up, even though I saw them work really hard and own their own business. In my mind, I was like, okay, the pinnacle of success is to be a lawyer or a doctor. That was literally my mindset. So when I was going to school, I was like, okay, I need to go to school. I need to get my degree. I'm going to go to law school or med school or something and, make a lot of money and have this really successful, job, career. As I got older, I realized that really my passion wasn't there, especially with sports and where sports took me in my life. And after I got back from Germany from playing volleyball, I was just like, I told my parents, I was like, I'm sorry, guys, I'm not going to go to law school. they weren't super excited about it because I didn't have a plan, but I just knew there was something more, and I just knew that I didn't want to work for somebody my whole life. I really wanted to make an impact on people, and that's really that was the start and the foundation of it, and then I just needed to find the right place to do that at.
Got it. So that brings you to insurance about 2 years ago, not at FFL. How was that getting into another company, and kind of that transition? And then we'll obviously talk to how it brought you here.
Absolutely. It was interesting. So I was making, like $60,000 a year at this sales job I had. And I was actually going to look for health insurance because my job didn't provide it. And so when I was talking to my health broker and trying to get set up with that, he kind of was talking to me about the insurance industry. And I was like, oh, no, that's, the stigma, like, that's for old men. Like, why would I want to do that? I'm a young female, like, why would I want to do that? But once I learned more about the value that it was to really break down, because insurance can be such a complicated thing for people to think about. And that's where I think people get scared about insurance, or, push it off for so long. They're like, I don't know where to start. So when I saw that I could learn those things, learn the knowledge that I needed to have to really break it down to people and bring value to them, because it really does help them, I was like, okay, I might as well give this a try. But the funny thing was, I wasn't making very much money at my job already. And I needed to get my license and study for it. But I knew that if I was working and studying, I wasn't gonna do it, because I'm really like an all-in, one track, mind, jump all in and go. So I prayed about it, and I was like, you know what, I need to put kind of like a good stress on myself and just make myself go to the next level. So I quit my job, I put in my 2 weeks, and went all in on studying for my license, and didn't get paid for about, a month and a half or so. But because I had to get my license, go through that whole contracting process. But once I did that, I jumped straight into the health insurance world, and started making more money in a month than I had ever thought possible at that time. And it was pretty incredible. So that was kind of where I started and how I got into insurance in general.
What I love about what you just said is we talk about getting uncomfortable, right? And you completely 1,000% not making money for a month and a half. I'm sure you were not comfortable.
No.
And your parents were probably less comfortable.
Yes.
What the hell are you doing with your life, kind of a thing, right? But people perform better when their back is against the wall, because you knew that you were going to make it happen one way or another.
Absolutely. I had to. And that was where I felt like I was too comfortable, and I hate being comfortable. So like, even when I made the move out to Arizona and I quit, I was making, way more money out in LA. But I was just like, I don't want to be comfortable in a place where I know it is not where I'm meant to be for that long. So I quit, an $80,000 a year job out in LA, which at the time at 25 years old is a lot of money, and then I moved to Arizona to make way less than what I was making out there, living with my grandma and trying to figure out life in my mid-20s. And yeah, it was very uncomfortable, but I knew I had to do that and make that jump and put my back against the wall, because I knew that there was another level I needed to get to, and I wasn't going to get there doing the same thing I had been doing.
Yeah, I really love that, and thank you for sharing that, because I think the journey is really what it's about, right? It's what defines us, and a lot of times when we're in the journey and in the muck and the mire and the grind, we don't really understand it. But then you see the end result, which we're going to obviously get to here. So now you get going with this company, and we're going to kind of do that comparison game. Obviously not naming names, but kind of what you started in the industry and what you saw. And then how probably, we open up this bright new world of FFL, and how it's completely different and more abundant in resource, I would assume. So in this company you worked with, what was the lead structure? How did that all work, starting out?
Yeah, so I started, like I said, with a health insurance company, and I was a broker. So I did get introduced early to the broker life. So I had different companies that I could work with, but with health insurance, it is more limited as far as what you can offer people, and there's time frames. So it's like November, December, January was great because it's open enrollment, and then after that, the urgency goes way down, and so then you're basically, foot to the pavement and trying to build something from scratch. So the lead structure there, you did have to buy leads. But when looking back, there wasn't like this huge emphasis on, hey, this is what you need to put into leads, and this is going to be your return. So I just knew I had to buy leads, and I was so scared to invest because I had no money. I hadn't been making anything. And so I didn't really have this good mindset around leads at the time. I was just trying to scrape by and do what I could with anything I had, right? And the funny thing is I get into this health insurance brokerage. I hit every single bonus as a new agent, but I was like, I'm still not making like really what I need to be making. But it started out well, and then like I said, when the urgency went down, I needed to make a shift, and then COVID hit too. So literally right at the time, it was March 2020. I was basically going business to business at this time, trying to get my name out there to be a health insurance broker for companies, for individuals, whatever I could do. And then COVID hit, everyone's working from home. So now that option goes out the window, and I'm like, okay, I really don't have enough to invest in more leads. The urgency's down. I really don't know what to do. And then I had a mutual friend who was working in an insurance company. And so I met up with him and ended up getting into, when I say insurance company, life insurance. Right. So I ended up working with a life insurance company as a captive agent for 14 months. And that lead structure was completely different. Everything there was completely different. Now, the comp was a lot higher than what I had been used to at health insurance. So I was like, oh, this is amazing, at like 60%, commission with a 65% advance. So I'm, technically making like 39%, but with bonuses and stuff, we made basically like half of what we wrote. But I got into there and I was like, this is great. And I didn't have to pay for leads. They were like, oh, hey, you get free leads. I'm like, free leads? That's a thing? So freaking cool, right? So I get into this structure, and I have free leads. I'm making okay money. And as time goes on, though, as I learn the ins and outs of the business, and basically now, as you kind of said, like everything opens up when you see FFL.
The heavens open. Yeah. There is light.
When I actually got into seeing what FFL had, I was like, wait a second. I was like, my wheels started turning again, because I learned so much. Like, I'm so grateful for my experience at my previous, both of my previous companies, because it gave me the skill set that I needed to really now launch a business that I personally own. I think the difference is like, I didn't really realize what it was like to actually own your own business in the life insurance industry. I didn't know what it was like to actually control your own lead flow and how significant that is for running your business. And then, the comp, like no one can say, I can't say more about the comp. I mean, it's just being able to make double what I was making before. Now,
and you thought that was high at the time.
Exactly. Exactly. No, I did. And the funny thing is, so at that company too, it's, they still preach like invest. But I was like, I have no money to invest. I was barely getting by on paying my bills. So when I came here and I'm making, double or more what I was making there, now I'm like, okay, now I can actually invest. And now I see it, long term, and I see what I need to do to get my business to where I want it to be.
Yeah, and I love that. We're going to talk about kind of, the recruiting and the power of what brought you here in the way of like you seeing a video, some stuff on social media, stuff along those lines, and now how you're using it. So you basically saw a video, an Andrew Taylor podcast similar to this, and that from someone you knew from the prior company, correct?
Yeah, so I actually didn't know him. So I work with Tobey. Right. I actually didn't know Tobey personally, but I had seen all these podcasts from a lot of different people, right? And I'm seeing all these people making money, and I'm like, is this really true? But when I saw Tobey's podcast, that when he wrote 100,000 in a month, I was like, and I could kind of tell he came from the company I was at currently. I was like, okay, I need to reach out to him because I need to get like an actual like true comparison. Like, how did you write that? Did it kill you? Can you ever do it again? Like, because at my old company, writing 100,000 a month writing 50 in a month is a lot, you know? And certain people can do it, but not everyone can really do it. And it's exhausting. Like, I've seen people write 50 to 100K in a month, and it's exhausting. And you can't, and then basically they take a couple months off after that because they're so exhausted. So I literally called him to be like, hey, is this real? And what did you make? What did you net, right? Because I think the biggest thing, when people see all the FFL numbers, a lot of people on the outside, what they want to know, okay, but what's real?
Sure.
Like, what did you net out of that? I get the 100% comp, whatever, but what are you paying on leads? And what did you make? And then what's your net? So those are some of the questions that I had. I just wanted him to be real with me on that. And he was, and it was a very eye-opening conversation. So.
Yeah. And shout out to him, 'cause he's awesome. Great guy. And I think the culture here is the transparency.
Absolutely. And
he was 100% transparent, because it's the same way I talk to somebody. I'm like, I'm an open book. Like, I think we all are. We're going to tell you the good, the bad, the ugly. And then if you want to work with the Super Bowl champion, great. If you don't, all right. Like, you're going to join eventually.
Absolutely.
Because you're going to keep seeing it, because we're going to keep dripping and doing things like this. Mm-hmm. So now you get rolling in July of this year. So we're literally, 5-6 months, right? How did your first month look in your transition?
So actually my first full week changed my life.
Wow.
So I came into FFL, full transparency, like beginning of 2021. We're in 2022 now.
Yeah, right.
Beginning of 2021, I was in a position where, like, I was having months where I couldn't pay my rent. Like, it was not good. And it's sometimes embarrassing to talk about that, but that's just where I was at, you know? And so I came into FFL with a few $100 in my bank account, and I told Tobe, I was like, I need this. Like, I need this to work. Because what I was doing before wasn't working. I needed this to work because I knew there was more out there, and I see people being successful. So he told me, he's like, get on a plane, do a travel trip, because I was living in Arizona at the time. And so I did a travel trip where there was smaller counties. I went to Illinois. There's like a smaller county, so I could work more leads and things like that. Mm-hmm. And he was like, just follow the system. And he gave me realistic expectations too, which I think is really important. I think a lot of people come in and they just think, because obviously we have warm buyer leads, but they just think that every lead is going to pick up and be like, oh yeah, I want life insurance. Yeah. No, I mean, you're still dealing with people, right? So you still have to be set up for success, that there's going to be rejection. So he set me up really realistic expectations and what it was going to look like to be on the phones for 8 to 10 hours in a day, you know, and I had never done that before. So I got to Illinois my first week. I followed the system to a T, even though there were times when I wanted to cry, and I called Tobe and I was like, the leads aren't working. He's like, they're the same leads I use, so they'd work, just keep dialing. I was like, okay. So I kept going. I ended up submitting 20,000 in my first week.
Wow.
Yeah. And, you know, I basically had about 15,000 in deposits within a few days. And I was able to pay my rent. I was able to pay off my car. I was able to go home to see my dad for Father's Day, because that was basically my first full week was in mid-June. So, yeah.
And you know, the money is awesome when you say the dollar, but the story of the things you did with it is what it's really about.
Yeah.
You know, like, all of those things wouldn't happen. You know what I mean? And that's incredible. So now that changes your life. So now, and you're willing to travel. You're willing to do what it takes, because you have to do what it takes. I think there's a lot of people sometimes where they're in that position and they're like, I'll do whatever it takes, except that. Right? Yeah. And it's like, well, I'm sorry. Like, it's not going to work. Because you're like, if you have no money, you have a lot of time. Yep. So use the time.
Yep.
So now, at what point, because you've now built a team, did best month last month, 122,000, got a logo, you're ready for a monster year. Absolutely. At what point did you say, not only am I going to sell, but I'm going to build a business?
Honestly, after that first week. Because
that'll do it.
Yeah, because I came in knowing that I literally just had to write business and pay my bills.
Right.
And I didn't know where that was going to take me, to be honest. And at my old company, it took like a solid month to train one agent, you know, to get them really solid in the business. And so I was like, I don't have, like, whenever I was trying to train people before, it took away from my personal production. So then I'm like, okay, I can't pay my bills, but I'm trying to help these people. And the balance was really difficult. When I first came in, my first week, okay, I'm calling Tobey all the time. Every single time, it didn't ring more than twice, and he would pick up.
Yeah.
Every single time. And most of the time, he was in the home. He was in the home with a client, closing a deal, and I'm seeing him post numbers nonstop, and I'm like, holy crap. I was like, he's helping me write business, right? Answering my phone calls, and he's also putting up significant numbers, you know, every single week, nonstop. So seeing him lead in that way, honestly showed me, I'm like, okay, I can do that too, you know, because as soon as I posted that I had transitioned to FFL and what I did my first week, I had tons of people reaching out to me. Warm Market, people from my old company, like other places, whatever, and asking questions, right? And before, I didn't really have, I think, the full belief level that anyone could truly do this. But after my first full week here, I was like, literally anyone can do this.
Yeah.
As long as you buy the leads, you call the leads, you go see the leads, like anyone can do this. It was so simple. So from that point forward, when people were reaching out to me, it was so easy to just tell them what happened to me, you know, and just be honest about it and literally tell them, hey, yeah, you can do this. Absolutely. Like, let's get your license, or let's get you contracted, whatever it was, you know? So from that point forward, I was like, I know I want to build a business.
100%. What I love about what you just said from being a good upline, right? I think the biggest thing for being a good upline is just what he did. He answered the phone.
Yep.
I heard years ago, Mike Killiman talking about the change in his business was when he started answering the phone like religion, no matter what was going on, because you are wearing two hats when you know you have to sell to pay your bills, right? We're in the field, but then you're also building for the future. You're helping people. You're building passive income. So you're doing two jobs, and you got to juggle it, but it's not that deep because we have a great system. And if you coach people right on the front side and tell them, hey, just go to the house and fill out the financial inventory. Like, I had an agent today. He's sending me voice message things on text.
Yeah.
And he's like, I need you to be available at 7. I'm like, cool. Fill out the financial inventory and call or text me.
Yeah.
And I got you.
Yeah.
So if you're an upline out there and you're building a business, it's not magic. It's answer your phone for people.
Yep.
Because it goes a long way on so many levels. So I love that you brought that up. So now you see this belief level, you start doing it. When did you get, because you mentioned you have a staff now, when did you get your first staff member?
So I actually hired her by October. So I was only in the business really for 2-ish months. But I kept hearing over and over again from Sean and from the leaders, hire immediately.
Yeah.
You know, so I didn't really have too much for her to do, but I knew that like there was enough like just nonsensical things that I didn't really feel like doing that would take me away from other productive activities that I could throw her way just part-time. Right. And so for last year in 2021, you know, I had her doing a few things here and there. It was kind of like a little all over the place. And then I was really asking a lot of questions. I think the biggest thing that people can know is like, you don't need to know everything before you hire. I literally hired her and I was like, keep your job. I was like, but here's my goal. Here's my vision. Here's where I'm going. And she has been amazing because she bought into my vision. She's like, I love where you're going and I want to be a part of where you're going. I know it might be, and I was very transparent with her. I was like, hey, you're the first person I'm actually hiring like ever in my life as like my own personal staff, you know? Yeah. So, but I just told her, I was like, hey, like, we're going to learn and grow together, you know? And I just need someone who can be there and, you know, get these things done as I build and help me build this business because it's going to be great for everyone involved. You know, and I talked to her about integrity and I talked to her about those goals and where we're headed. So she knows also what the big goal is and what the journey is, you know, to get there. So
did it scare you to now all of a sudden going from 1 month, I can barely pay my bills, then I write 20K in a week, and now I'm hiring someone that I've never hired, paying or managing. Did that scare you?
1000%.
Okay.
It still does, honestly. Like
Okay.
it's still a learning process,
Yep.
and I'm growing. And I have her working more hours now than I did before, since my team is at a higher place, and we have a plan in place for when I hit. When our team issues a certain amount per month, bringing her on full time.
Yep.
So we kind of have a little bit of a rough plan in place, which is great. But no, it's scary for sure. But I hear people talk all the time. They're like, hire somebody so that you're responsible for them. And it's going to push you, again, put your back against the wall. It's going to push you to where you can't get comfortable. Whether or not you can, like, I can pay my bills easy, right? But can I pay someone else's bills?
Mm-hmm.
So, and she's a single mom. So I have now a responsibility on my end I have to go out and work, not just for myself, but for my staff, because they're helping me and I got to help them. So. And
what's awesome about the whole staff piece and getting it early is it's kind of like build it and they will come type of a thing.
Yeah.
Like, me with this office, this is a huge office, and it was a big undertaking, but I'm like, you know what, if I see the vision of where we're going, like, you have to build it now. And you might not have the instant gratification right off the bat, but you're laying the foundation for the explosion, because you're never going to get to where you want to get to if you don't kind of go that little extra mile in the beginning. If you hold back and you're like people say, oh, I'm going to hire once I hit this number. Mm-hmm. Well, guess what? You're not going to hit the number. You're not going to get a logo in 5 months, whatever you did, without that help. Yeah. The money you make on personal production after paying your business and your personal expenses is, how do I leverage? Yep. How do I leverage to get more? So I love that, and the fact that you're just so all in, and it seems like, I don't want to say it's the wrong way, you're not thinking. Mm-hmm. And I say that in a complimentary way, meaning like you're not overthinking to not do things.
Absolutely. And honestly, that's been something that I have had to get over the years, because growing up, I was very much a perfectionist. I'm like, okay, I get straight A's. I have to be the best athlete and for all my sports. Anything I do, I was like, I need to be the best. I need to be the best. So many times I would overthink, and I'm like, okay, I have to know everything before I get started. Yeah. And so I think my biggest hurdle always was just starting and just going. Right. And so that's been something I've been working on a lot over, my adult life. And I think the cool thing is that I've learned so much, and I've built so much, such a foundation from my previous experiences. And then coming here, it's actually given me a little bit of that push and that shove to be like, okay, I see what other people are doing. I see what Dave Witcher did to get to where he is, right? I see what Sean is saying, what Sean did himself to build this thing, right? And I see what all these leaders are doing. I just need to follow that. So they've laid the groundwork. And it's going to be scary for sure, but it's worked every single time. So why would it not work?
Exactly. 100%. What are some of the habits that you feel that you have that now take you? I mean, you were an athlete. I'm sure you had, crazy habits in the way of working out and physically and all that jazz. But what are some habits and attributes that you have that you think are now helping you get to the levels that you're looking to get to?
I think a big one is, so I was actually a coach as well. So outside of just playing sports, half my life, I also coached volleyball for about 7 years. Mm. And I think that has attributed a lot. So obviously the work ethic, as far as I know what hard work looks like, mm-hmm. I know what training and practice and all of that looks like before you get into the game. So that obviously has transitioned over into anything I've done professionally. But the coach aspect, I think, has really helped with the leadership side of things, because I know that there's different personalities that we're going to be working with across the board. And so we just have to learn to adapt. We can't coach everyone the same way. Yeah. I only coached female athletes, but at the same time, there's females that there were athletes I had that I could yell at them and be like, what the heck are you doing? You know how to do this, right? And that clicks for them. And because that's kind of how I was, my coach could get on me for something and I would be more fired up to do it better, you know? And then there's some athletes where you cannot do that because they'll go sit in a corner and cry.
Yeah.
So you
coddle them a little bit.
Yeah, exactly. You have to baby them a little bit. And so it's just different people needs different things. And so like my cousin Jared that I hired, who's been our top producer for the past few months in our whole agency, issuing $30,000-$40,000 a month. I didn't have to do anything for him. Literally, I hired him. We showed him the system. He goes out. I've never taken him into the field. Nothing. Like he failed and fell flat on his face for his first 2 weeks and would call me every single time in the home, and we talk through it. And then now he's building a business and running $40,000 a month.
Yeah.
So there's this different. I think the biggest thing is meeting people where they are when you're coaching them. So it's like I have to understand that not everyone is Jared, right? I have to understand that not everyone is me. So there's certain people in the business that I have to maybe, hold their hand a little bit longer, but then also show them the resources. What I also train my leaders to do on my team who are building agencies is as I tell them, I'm like, hey, don't take time away from your personal production to answer every single little question that these agents have. There are so many tools and resources that FFL has already put in place. I was like, send them the link and tell them, hey, look, it's here, look it up. At some point, like you can handhold for so long, and then at some point you have to be like, hey, you got to do this yourself too. Right. I can't handhold you the whole way. I'm not going to build a business that way.
Yeah. You need to show me that where to, like, the answers are there.
Yeah.
I mean, with the amount of websites we all have and you could be anywhere and you could throw out a question on Facebook and 700 people answer it in 5 minutes.
Exactly.
Like literally, you could do that and you'd have no problem with somebody answering you. So I love that. Now, the social media component, obviously, like we talked about, you saw a podcast, someone who worked at a company, similar scenario, and then bang, draws you in. What are some of the things you're doing now in the way of social media recruiting to now draw people to your team?
Yeah. I think the biggest thing is just continuing to post. I'm posting a lot. A lot of my stuff that I've been doing initially has been organic. And then obviously I'm going to be, bringing in some help with recruiting to kind of be just so much more active on more platforms than I can possibly do in one day by myself.
Leverage.
But yeah, exactly. But on Instagram specifically, I think Instagram is the biggest social platform for most people with recruiting, be yourself, but also post a ton. Like I post my numbers, but I post my team a lot. I post my team more than I post myself because I want people to see what these agents are doing in their first month, in their first weeks, and what they're building. So, but then also, I think the biggest thing too is a lot of people on the outside of the insurance industry in general, even outside of FFL. Like before I came into FFL, a lot of the stuff that I would see posted, I was like, okay, what does this mean? What does that mean? What does issue paid mean versus submit? So there's a lot of things that people don't necessarily understand, and we just know what it is. So we just post it thinking people might know. Well, I think the biggest thing too is showing your face on Instagram and Facebook and literally talking, right? Sharing your story, sharing. So I think, I hired a few people based off of, a couple months ago, I was like, I was having some conversations with people at different companies and they're, making comments about how like, oh, it's not all about the money. And I was like, okay, so I wonder if people think that I'm just all about the money because I'm posting deposits, right? Or posting these numbers all the time. So I got on my Instagram and I really just shared my heart of like, hey guys, like it's not all about the money. However, money is a necessity that we need in life. Like if we put that on the back burner and we're like, oh, like we're just gonna lift people up and motivate them. What are you motivating them for? Like we're able to change people's lives with this company because people can make more money here than they ever could anywhere else with no education and no experience. And at the end of the day, like money feeds your family, right? Money pays the bills, and money gives you like the accumulation of wealth allows you to give back to in so many more areas than you ever thought possible. The fact that I can tithe to my church and give offerings on top of that to different ministries that I would like to support that I never could before and not really think twice about it. And I can do that cheerfully, right? The Bible says be a cheerful giver. So like being able to do those things outside of just what I need made me less selfish. And that was something that I talked about is I think when we're living paycheck to paycheck, we're selfish, right? Because, and needingly so, not, I'm not trying to tell her, but when you're living paycheck to paycheck, all you're thinking about is paying your bills and making sure your family is good and you're good, right? If we don't have anything above that, we can't do anything for people. So when we do start making more money and utilizing a vehicle that allows us to do that and gives time with our family and money that we can give to other people, now we are becoming less selfish. We're more giving people. So
I love that. That is words to live by right there. And I always love to say it's not about the money, but it's about not having to worry about money.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? Like you wouldn't have been able to go see your dad on that trip. You wouldn't have been able to do a lot of things that you're able to do. Like you said, tithing to your church. Like you can't do those things. And that's stressful. You know what I mean? Because you feel like, hey, I just can't do, if it's your kids, if it's your family, this company, it's not about like, hey, we're posting Maseratis all day long.
Exactly.
It's about like, hey, like my son can go to a private school and get a better education. And then guess what? The world's a better place because we have one more highly educated person than lowly educated person. Yeah. So we'll end it on this because that was fire. Going into now 2022 convention practically here. You weren't even at the last year convention, right? So you're in for it's going to be mind blowing, especially with the baseball stadium, 15,000. It's going to be insane. What do you see for your business now in the next, we'll call it 11 months as we get through 2022?
Yeah, absolutely. I am beyond excited. Obviously, convention is going to launch. I mean, we have almost our entire team is going. Yeah. So we have just with my agency, FFL Promise, we have, at least 25 agents going, which is the majority, like 90% of my agency. And then obviously more so with our whole, overall agency. But I'm just excited for people to get the training. I'm excited to be there for my first time. I'm excited to be in front of people that are way better than me and ask all the questions I can,
100%.
And learn and take that into this year, because my whole goal, we did 122,000 in December. My whole goal by December 2022 is to 10X. So I'm not looking to just double. I'm not looking to triple. I'm looking to end the year at 1.2 million, going into 2023, talking to integrity, So there's really, really big goals. But in order for that to happen, I need to be giving back to my agents as much as possible. So I have several leaders that I'm working to help them get to their logo and VP, because by helping them get to that place, that's going to help the whole overall agency get to where we need to be by the end of the year. But I've seen, Nina and Hayden do it. I've seen Marissa do it. I've seen so many people 10X or more their agency in a year or less, so I'm just excited. I know it's possible. And it's going to happen. There's a lot of work that's going to go into it. So I've been telling everyone, I'm 2022 is the year of growth. 2022 as head down. We're working as hard as we freaking can to get to where we need to be, because this is the year that's going to define, the business. So.
Wow. Well, I couldn't have said that any better myself. I mean, I'm fired up. I'm going to run through the glass wall in a minute. Yeah, I love that. I think you are going to absolutely crush it. You have the right mentality, the right mindset. I love having you in the office here. It's a great energy for everybody. We're definitely going to have you do some trainings and stuff like that as time goes on. So I just thank you for joining me here, and anything that I can do for your team would be more than happy to. And thank you again. Can't wait for convention.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Steve.
You got it. All right, guys. Talk to you later. Take care.